pointless, but the Dark Avenger. Dear Princess Luna, I understand that this letter must come as a surprise to you, especially given the timing and the content. While I made sure to keep in touch ever since that fateful night during the summer sun celebration, you may have noticed how I don't send you nearly as many letters as I did, and still do to this day, to my mentor. Though I hope this does not lead to any sister strife between the two of you, but tonight felt like an appropriate time to try and correct that. I apologize in advance for the unusual nature of this letter. Unlike nearly all of my other writings, this one is not rehearsed or planned in any way. I'm pretty much doing this on the fly, and, to be honest, even I'm not completely sure why I'm writing this down. It's late, well past the time any reasonable pony would have gone to bed, and I can barely keep my eyelids open. My hooves are practically screaming at me to just ball this up, throw it into the fireplace, and get some rest already. And yet, something just compels me to keep writing, to keep thinking of things to write. The only reason I'm awake right now is because I want to get this out of my system. This feels so stupid. I wanted to put my thoughts and emotions on paper so I could see them, raw and unedited. I might cross out something if it doesn't feel right, but I won't erase it. If I can read them back, then maybe I can make sense of them. That's why I left out any kind of forethought or rewriting. In fact, the very idea of addressing this to you came to me just moments after I picked up my quill. On that note, I must confess another thing. I have selfish reasons for writing to you specifically. I originally had Princess Celestia in mind, but I didn't want to disturb her at this hour. She deserves better than that. At the same time, however, I didn't have the patience to wait for a reply in the morning either, so I thought of you instead. And once I'm done with this letter, I'll stay up a little while longer. Maybe you'll write back to me. Maybe not. I don't really care anymore. I'm not so sure about this anymore. This rant of mine is clearly not worth the time nor the attention of a pony who has far more important duties to take care of. I hope I didn't manage to disturb such a task. The way I send these letters doesn't let me check on the pony on the other end. I sometimes wonder what happens immediately after Princess Celestia gets the reports I send her. But every time I think to ask, it just feels silly. Does she read them right away? Did they land in her tea? Do they get lost in other paperwork for that day? I don't know. I just wanted some pony else to read this once it's done. I'll wake up Spike and have him send it. The poor little guy. He shouldn't have to wake up so late, or so early, because of me. Feel free to answer whenever it will be convenient. Or not at all. I'll wait a little, keep the lights on, maybe grab another book. Perpetuate the rumors. The neighbors keep joking about how I tend to stay up so late. Most of the ponies I know bring it up every now and then. Went through another doorstop, Twi? One for every circle under your eyes? We all laugh, of course. I'm not offended. The habit is indeed kind of silly. But it isn't always true. In fact, I hardly ever manage to read more than a few pages late at night. If the sky's clear, I prefer just to gaze at the stars. They can comfort me. Reading doesn't. The mind doesn't work well when it's tired. I do it mostly when I can't sleep, when I don't want to for whatever reason. Sometimes I find myself rereading the same page over and over again while hours tick by. I read and reread the words to stop myself from thinking. It helps, but it also keeps me awake. I think it goes without saying, I'm in a terrible mood right now. But it makes no sense. Today was a perfect day. The sun came up just like every other day. If the sun comes up at dawn and gives us warmth, then that day's perfect. No pony should have to complain if they get to see it. Not if they get to live and breathe and walk and jump and talk and dance and sing in its light. We can hardly imagine how awful it would be to lose such blessings. But sometimes, I still feel like it's all just weighing down on me. I just retreat into the library and find a huge book so it will lead up most of my day, and I can forget about it as quickly as possible. Even now, I didn't stay up to write. Not at first. I got out a book as usual, but I didn't want to read. Now I want to tell some pony. I don't always stay up late just to read. I'm waiting for something. I want something to happen. I sit here and stare at the candle or look out the window and just wait. Why doesn't any pony ever knock on the door at this hour? Why are my closest friends the most frequent visitors by far? Some of them hardly ever read anything. Why does this town even need a library? Why don't I ever see some nervous pony begging me to be allowed to borrow a book because they just found out that they need one and couldn't wait until morning? Remember Nightmare Night? Remember that costume I made? Well, I actually did start that history group after the festival. Only as an experiment. I wasn't expecting much of a stir. But to my surprise, ponies did show up. Most of them stayed all the way until the end of the series of Star Swirl lectures. And that was it. They left. Foals went back to school. Adults went back to work. Elders went back to staying at home, I guess. No pony ever came up to me and asked me about it. No pony went, "Hey Twilight, what are you planning next?" It was almost as though it wasn't the lecture they all cared about, but the pony behind it. Maybe I'll do things like this incognito from now on. Having ponies show up just because of a name and a role defeats the purpose of the event. I know what you're thinking. Why not tell this to your friends? But I did that already. The response was always something along the lines of taking everything too seriously. Life, according to them, isn't worth worrying about so much. Not when there aren't any monsters to fight or great deadlines to meet. When in doubt, just laugh, take 5, embrace today. I keep seeing Pinkie Pie in my head. Even now she makes me smile. But my curiosity gnaws at me relentlessly. And she just wants me to bury it? My friends just want me to accept the inexplicable as it is? Maybe I didn't express myself well enough. I doubt my friends would ever ignore my concerns. I'm happy they want me to be happy. They're right. I do worry too much. Still, none of what they responded makes any sense. Yes, it always does help to have a bit of a spite, but it wasn't carefree laughter that stopped discord. We didn't wrap up winter by leaning back and drifting away from the current. We didn't free you from... You get my point. I don't have the heart to tell that to my friends, or any in Ponyville from that matter. On the other hoof, I can't help but feel that anything else I do here besides learning about friendship is pointless. I can never convince any pony how important it is to be inquisitive, to not ignore the questions our world places before us. If anything, it's only thanks to the efforts of those that never rest, while so many others can now lay back, relax, and tell me to act like they do. Actually, I take it back, they do ignore me. Once we're all in the thick of it, every pony is all ears, but when it's time to take it easy, then it isn't convenient to bother with my delusions, now is it? The kind of thinking almost cost us my brother's wedding, not to mention all the questions. No, I won't name examples. There exist those that make me equally guilty. I'm sleepy and I'm making accusations. Silly me. It's really late. I should get some sleep. Every pony else is, and look how happy they are all day. Perhaps tonight really is just a time for us to rest. You know what this is like, don't you? Being ignored. This has been eating away at me for some time. For 1,000 years, every pony has heard the same story. Even you had to apologize for it. You thanked me for stopping you. But I never once heard the story from your side. Nor have I heard of any pony else who did. The whole story. The part that convinced you to take such action. This gap has led to a lot of speculation among your subjects. Most of what I've seen is rather convoluted. Some theories are just downright silly. Looking at the stars now, I find that old pony's tale to be impossible to believe. How could any pony ignore such a beautiful sight? Ignore it to the point that you once went to war with your sister over it. Unlikely, or were ponies so much different back then? Was the sky not as pretty? Is there more to this tale that got left out? I can't imagine what it must have been. Jealousy? And if it was it anything like how I feel now? I see my friends attract entire crowds with what they do. Their passions are the passion of the masses. Mine are the butt of friendly jokes or get ponies to worry about me. They inspire others to be carefree to avoid ending up how I sometimes do. And maybe they're right. As long as I enjoy these things, why bother trying to impress any pony else with them? And again, why bother having friends at all? Besides, it's not like I can't find ponies here that share my passions. No pony's in the wrong here. I know a counter-argument for every one of my own complaints. They all seem convincing enough, so why does it still bother me? I guess it's time for one dweller of the night to ask for help from the other. Maybe if I were there back in that age and stayed up late like I do now, and you could have seen it, then you wouldn't... No, that's me being silly now. I should probably stop writing. This looks like about enough. I'm almost out of ink, my eyes hurt, and my head is about to hit the desk. I don't know what this has become, but I'll send it anyway. If nothing else, it will finally let me sleep well. Pain stabs into my heart every time I look at Spike. Every word I write is a chore now. As soon as this is done, I'll have to wake him up. Poor thing. He had too much to eat. Again. His snoring makes me smile. He doesn't deserve this. I don't think I'll even tell him what he asked to send and why, though I doubt he'd press for very long. He'll chalk it up to me being a crazy night owl and go back to his dreams. Maybe I'll talk to him in the morning. I'll talk to all of my friends. I'll probably forget about this tomorrow. The sun will rise. I'll be happy again. I can meet my friends. We can embrace another perfect day. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I hope it was worth your attention. I hope you can help me with what troubles me, even if I'm not sure what it is yet. Your friend, Twilight Sparkle. The mix of gray smoke and green fire swiftly escaped through the window. The young dragon grumbled under his breath as he trudged back to his bed and pulled the blanket back over his body. Moments later, his faint snoring buzzed in the darkness once more. Twilight smiled, and her hoof reached out to stroke Spike's head gently. She then trotted back to her desk, opened one of her old magic textbooks, and browsed through its pages for a while, enjoying the nostalgic value more than its actual content. After a few more minutes of reminiscing, she closed the book, gave a long yawn, and trudged over to her own bed. Letting out a deep sigh, she collapsed onto the soft mattress and closed her eyes. The letter still seemed like nonsense. Getting it done, however, was all the relief she needed. As she slowly drifted into unconsciousness, she felt comfortably empty. A loud belch rang out behind her, accompanied by a brief flash of green light. The noise yanked her right back from the edge of sleep. Moments later, she heard the familiar sound of a scroll hitting the floor.